of gender. Everything in this world in the present state of human consciousness has two genders, the male and the female gender. The law of gender expresses itself most forcibly throughout the whole round of creation in the so-called opposite sexes, the male and the female. It is manifested not only through human beings, but also through animals, plants, minerals, electrons, electrical and magnetic currents, etc. Not only on the physical plane does that law of gender function. It is also manifested in the mind of each human being, be it man or woman. They have the two genders expressed also in their mental selves. The mind of each individual has a self-consciousness which belongs to the male gender, and a subconsciousness which belongs to the female gender. These two are definitely expressing two sides of our individual minds. As the most important part of the process of thought operation is based on the law of gender in the human mind, details about it will be given in the 6th lesson, which deals with mind force. There is also a third constituent part in our mental selves, called the superconsciousness, which will be taken up in the 7th lesson. In this lesson, the law of gender will be explained in its operation through the fundamental characteristics of what we call, in our present state of consciousness, the two opposite sexes. We have now in humanity, on one side man, and on the other side woman, and these two are like two halves of a sphere, which, when they come together, combine to form a whole sphere. The generally accepted belief of today is that they unite for the purpose of procreation, to continue the human species on this path. No matter how important procreation may appear, a still greater and higher purpose is there for them to achieve. That ultimate purpose is that by learning their lessons through association, and by mutually developing their latent complementary qualities, they may work out completeness within each, after which they are automatically separated. Yet after their separation they are no longer the same as they were before. A great change has taken place within them. Before their meeting, they appeared as halves, but after the object of their association has been attained, they separate because each one of them has become a complete sphere. In man, who is the outward expression of the male qualities, which are energy, self-reliance, intellect, etc., are also latent and ready for expression all the female qualities. On the other hand, love, patience, intuition, gentleness, etc., latent in men, whenever expressed as dominant qualities, manifest themselves in what we call woman. Yet women have also latent within them all male qualities. This is so not only in the character of the individuals, but also in their physical bodies. For instance, the embryo of a child, until about the 5th month of gestation, has the two sexes within itself physically expressed. Yet afterwards it develops one sex or the other, and thus determines the sex to which it is born, boy or girl. Yet within the body of human beings are still discernible traces of the opposite sex. As it is with our physical bodies, so it is with our characters, and from each individual can be drawn out and developed the latent complementary parts of their characters. The main purpose of marriage and in general of the association of men and women is therefore to work out that development, to make them complete individual spheres, the image and likeness of the infinite sphere, called the Great Principle, the Absolute. In the 1st chapter of Genesis we read, "And God created man in his image and likeness. Male and female created he them." Only a being possessing both qualities referred to can be the perfect image and likeness of the perfect one. That is the goal toward which each step in humanity's evolution is bringing us daily nearer and nearer. The following diagrams show 3 pairs of halves, each half representing a man and a woman placed in a certain juxtaposition one to another, and forming 3 distinct groups. The whole of human relations can be classed under those 3 main headings. Yet each case is an individual one, and there are no two alike. The first pair shows the two halves, man and woman, directly facing each other, thus establishing between them as many connecting lines of attraction or love as their open surfaces allow. When in that relation, there is an irresistible drawing from one to another which unites them into a complete sphere. It may happen sometimes instantaneously, when two individuals chance to be in that relation one to another. It is then called love at first sight. When the two seemingly become one, everything seems to be in common between them, common interests, a common axis about which their lives rotate. And when individuals are in that condition, they feel such an overwhelming sense of completeness and harmony that they call it perfect bliss, and because of it would never like to part even for a moment. The slightest separation causes them intense suffering because of the lack of the complementary part. It is like an open wound when they are put apart, and they are only happy when they are again together. And they expect to remain in that condition not only throughout this life, but even throughout eternity. When two individuals are in that relation to one another, they are harmless, but also useless, to the rest of the world. They cannot help it. All their interests are centered within themselves. Most of their energies are used to keep those two halves together. The man to meet the demands of the woman to meet the demands of the man. They live in a world of their own and are happy. The world around them does not exist for them. Naturally, in such a case, they cannot express anything outside of themselves. And therefore one of the fundamental laws of the universe, the law of attraction, cannot operate outside of them as it should. For the law of attraction must be operating outside as well as inside in order to keep everything in perfect equilibrium and harmony. If the whole universe would be filled with compound spheres of the above kind, nothing would be flowing from one sphere to another, each being centered in itself, and the universe, deprived of the cohesive power of attraction, would fall to pieces. But the great law takes good care that such a condition shall be only transitory, and nothing but a stepping stone to work out higher problems. When the two halves, man and woman, combine into a sphere, those halves apparently fit each other completely, but that is not the case. There is always some little space between them where they are not completely adjusted. Compared with the great harmonization of their other qualities, that little maladjustment is almost unnoticed by them. Yet in that little space where they seemingly do not accord, and which forms a sort of a vacuum, the latent complementary parts of each are growing in, because nature does not permit a vacuum. The manifested male qualities of the man roar out of the woman her latent male qualities, because the law says that like attracts like. And the manifested female qualities of the woman, in their turn, draw out of the man his latent female qualities. Thus two incipient halves are gradually growing out in that open space between the two. The more they grow, the more independent of each other the two individuals become. This process of development is unfolding so gradually that neither of them notices the change in their relations one to another until they have become two complete spheres rotating around their respective axes, independent and free, yet still most intimately related one to another. Then only do they realize that some fundamental change has taken place within them, and their opened eyes perceive with amazement that they have grown into a new and higher condition. Their association has achieved its purpose. The law has been fulfilled. Two complete beings have been evolved from a half-developed condition and brought to the universe to cooperate consciously in the great eternal scheme. But a question may arise. Is all that love, that tender relation between them, gone once and forever? No, by no means. On the contrary, never before did they feel a greater sense of love, a more intense feeling of completeness and harmony, than since they became complete individual spheres. When they were halves, they could express one to another only the love of a half, But the moment they became complete spheres, they expressed complete love to each other in all its infinite manifestations. Being complete spheres and rotating around their own individual axes, they continually see one another in all their different aspects. It is like incessantly discovering in each other some new and precious qualities. Naturally, under those conditions, their love becomes infinitely greater and more perfect than it had ever been before. On account of their completeness, they must also radiate love to everyone and everything about them in every direction, thus fulfilling the law of love, of universal brotherhood. Then they become useful members of the great human family. Because they love everybody, only they will love their mate more, because their relations are at the time the closest, one to another. That is why they are called mates, or affinities, or twin souls. But their mutual love by no means excludes love to other beings also. Through incarnation after incarnation, we have all been working out that problem of ours, by gradually developing our inner qualities. Usually, when two individuals are in that position facing each other, as described above, it is due to previous incarnations which prepared them for that relation. That is why, when they meet, they cannot help but love each other. When two such individuals have worked out their completeness and reached a state of individual spheres, they do not think any more of their own happiness. All their life, all their thought, all their love is for their mates' or their friends' happiness. They are never expecting anything in return. But, being complete spheres, it is inevitable that they should receive in return as much as they give. It is the highest love we can imagine now in our present state of consciousness, because it is a love which loves, not for what it can get, but for what it can give. It is the nearest to the love of divinity, for divinity also gives first, then receives. God first loved us. That is why we, in our turn, are to love Him. Even bodily separation or death cannot break such ties once they are established. Diagram number 2 shows another group, much less harmonious, but much more common. There the man loves the woman, who does not reciprocate his love because her affections are fixed upon another man, who, in his turn, is indifferent to her. Under these circumstances, it is much more difficult to work out the completion, because there is no help whatsoever from the side of the corresponding party. Still, the problem of completion is solved, but in a different way. First, the man, not having the woman's manifested qualities directed toward him to awaken within him the latent qualities of love and gentleness, has to draw out of himself, through his own efforts, stimulated by his love, the complementary female qualities. Love does it, more and more, because of the woman he loves. All the latent female qualities, as love, patience, gentleness, intuition, etc., are brought out of that man by his love. It is a slow and painful process, because he has to do it alone, without the help of the woman he loves. Yet he does it, because he loves. When he has worked out his completion, his whole attitude toward that woman changes. In the beginning it was selfish. But the more he loves, the less selfish he becomes. At first he suffered because his love was not answered, and was jealous of the other man to whom that woman was giving her love. The completeness once attained, all these negative feelings disappear entirely, because he has found harmony within himself. Then he no longer thinks of his own happiness. He finds his happiness in the happiness of the woman he loves. No sacrifice is too great for him, for he is a changed being. There is the woman, in love with another man, who is indifferent to her. She has also to work out the problem of her completion without the help and assistance of the man she loves. Through love again is that problem solved. Her own love makes her more self-reliant and energetic, compels her to make greater use of her reasoning qualities, etc. And thus, through much hard work, sorrow, and trouble, she becomes eventually a complete sphere. Then her whole attitude changes. She begins to feel toward the unresponsive object of her love, a mother's affection, caring for him without ever expecting to get anything in return, entirely forgetting her own self for his sake. She also is then ready for any sacrifice, because she has worked out her completion. And when the two, the first man and woman, have become complete spheres, their mutual relations are then also modified. To their surprise, they discover that bonds of love exist from both sides. They become friends, and the woman who spurned, perhaps for many years, the love which the man lavished upon her in such measure, begins in her turn to love him also. Why that sudden change? Because, as a complete sphere, she cannot help but love everybody. And that first man, perhaps her husband, being so close to her, naturally must get the radiations of love emanating from her in every direction. The third group represents two individuals, a man and a woman, who are married, yet turn their backs upon each other. Worldly considerations were probably the cause of their loveless marriage. Or maybe it was a match arranged by their parents, who did not consult the personal feelings of the two chiefly concerned. Such a marriage must be an unhappy one, and an utter failure in regard to the problem of working out their own individual completeness. It is one of the most inharmonious of human relations, because it is unnatural, the law of attraction, the basic law of the universe, not finding expression in their mutual relations. They are of no use one to another, as they are turning their backs to each other. Yet, as the problem of completion must be worked out also in that case, they are seeking an affinity, a love, outside of their matrimonial ties. And when they have found somebody to love, they separate, because they realize that otherwise happiness would remain for them a mere dream. Because of worldly considerations, it may take them many years before they make that final decision, yet it is inevitable. Soon or late it must come, and the sooner the better. That last group teaches human beings a great lesson, that marriage is there to build the character, to develop love to its highest manifestation, and not to attain material ease and comfort. The problem of completion is continually worked out in life through association of individuals one with another. Women constantly contribute to men some of their qualities, and men do the same toward women. That is why co-education has so many strong points in its favor. Even the association of individuals of the same sex has also its own beneficial results. Especially large educational, social, and military bodies play a very important role in that respect. There, individuals belonging to different classes in social life come together, each one contributing some characteristic, some quality, to their fellow beings. Angles are rounded off, rough surfaces made smooth, and individuals promoted a few degrees further toward completion. Completion is perfection, and as such is a very wonderful thing to seek and to strive for. But we must also realize that a problem of that magnitude cannot be worked out by individuals in the span of one life. Many returns to earth, many reincarnations, are needed for each one of us before we become perfect beings, the image and likeness of that supreme being, the source of all perfection, whom we call God. This law pervades the three planes, the physical, mental, and spiritual. It is a law which has its root in the spiritual plane because there is the first great cause, the principle, the basis of everything. But there also is the effect, the universe. On the spiritual plane, cause and effect are simultaneous and instantaneous. There they are so blended together that they cannot be separated. But on the other planes there is always a certain time, a period of space between cause and effect, due to the human concept, in our present state of consciousness, of time and space. That law is operating in this way. Every time we start something, be it thought, word, or action, we create a certain cause which will someday materialize in a corresponding effect. If we start a positive cause, a right cause, there will be in due time a positive effect, and vice versa. Just when that effect will take place, no one can tell. It depends upon many circumstances, but it is unavoidably due, like a logical result in a mathematical problem. Whenever we have started a cause, we are powerless over its effect, can never change the effect. Yet human beings do not realize that at all, as is indicated in the common belief that if people will regret their sins, they will be forgiven and ushered into heaven. That is an utter impossibility because it is against the law. If a person regrets a mistake, a sin, it is forgiven in the sense that there is always the possibility to make it right, to start a new positive cause. But the penalty for the wrong is also always there, and that penalty it is impossible to avoid because it is our own creation, the effect of the cause we started coming back to us. And there we have the explanation of those words of Jesus in the Bible, when he said, "Whoever soweth the wind shall reap the whirlwind." He knew the law of cause and effect and he stated it. But naturally he could not explain that law to the people who were living at that period as scientifically as it can be explained now. He presented it in another way. He used the allegorical form, yet it was the same law. When we know that law and apply that knowledge to our daily life, we can shape our own destiny exactly as we wish it. Naturally, we cannot straighten out past mistakes, but we can take them as lessons. When those mistakes, those negative causes, materialize into our lives as negative effects, those who are wise profit by the experience of their mistakes, which then become for them good lessons not to repeat those mistakes. In order to use that law successfully in our lives, we must learn to handle it properly. The first and most important thing to do is to live in the ever-present now. What does that mean? Are we not living right now? Yes and no. To live in the present now means always to do the best we can to start right causes now. Illogical and impractical as it is, yet most people live in the future, with their hopes pinned to that future. On the other hand, some people live with the remembrance of the past. They are tied to their dead past. That also is not living now. Now is the appointed time do we read in the sacred books. Now we must do everything which is to be done. Now is the very wonderful and only moment for us to live in. A moment which very often is not at all understood by some, even of the great philosophers. They entirely disregard the now. They claim that now does not exist because everything continually changes, is in a condition of perpetual becoming, and that therefore it can never be now but is either the past or the future. If that were really so, we could never use constructively the laws of cause and effect, as the future would be always beyond our control. Therefore we would never be able consciously to build and direct our lives. We would always be slaves of fate. In living now, in performing now our duties as they come to us, we place ourselves in the following position. We are, so to speak, standing on a line of demarcation. On one side of us the past, on the other side the future, and in front of us the present. In the past we have experience, in the future all possibilities. But now is the time for us to act, to plant the good seed, to start positive causes, taking advantage of lessons of the past so as to create the future we desire. Someday tomorrow will become today. The future will become present, as time is moving along. We alone are immovable in that ever-present now. Events are passing before our eyes as a film on a screen. It is the film of our own life which we witness now. We are both the audience and the actors, and our state of consciousness is the screen on which we perceive everything. Now is so marvelous because we perform in it simultaneously two actions. We reap the past and sow the future. These two actions we can perform continually only now. That is why now is so important and why now holds for us the key to our destiny. The past cannot be changed. We have to take it as it is. But our future is completely in our hands, and, if we start the right causes, should never occasion us any worry, as it will take care of itself because of the law of cause and effect. When Jesus said, "Take therefore no thought for the morrow will take thought for the things of itself. Sufficient unto the day is the evil thereof." He meant that we must now do the right thing, and then the future will take care of itself because of the law. It is unavoidable, and yet we realize it so little that we continually worry about the future. Whenever we do anything, we wonder, how will it come out? Why should we worry? If we do the right thing, leave it alone and it will come out all right, through the operation of the law of cause and effect. Worry is a leak through which energy is wastefully dissipated in the unknown void of the future instead of being constructively applied in the present. We can perform real action only on the plane on which we are living now in body, mind, and soul. For the great principle, there is only one plane, that of the ever-present now. There is no past or future for the absolute, because it is all-inclusive. And when we reach the highest state of consciousness, there will be the most complete sense of the ever-present now, as past and future will be one with it. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is recorded as saying, "Do not think about the fruit of your action, but perform action." That is the same as when Jesus told us not to worry about the next day. Do the right thing today, and the next day will take care of itself. That does not mean that we should cease planning. Naturally, we should plan things. But when we plan them as well as we can, when we have prepared the seed, if we have prepared a good seed and planted it rightly, it will grow well. Never worry about the result. There is the law back of it. That is why we must be satisfied with today and not try to imagine or make certain calculations that it will work out this or that way. Usually our calculations will be upset because in worrying about the future we do not give enough attention to the present. We cannot have the great law operating in the future, the great law being a law of the ever-present now. Neither the past nor the future can exist for that great law, because, like the great principle itself, it is an all-embracing law, and is therefore always operating now. We make certain mistakes periodically, and then say, "Next time I am not going to do that," but when next time comes we do it again. Why? Because of that law of cause and effect. Each time we make a mistake, we start a new cause for that mistake to be repeated. And usually, if we watch these periodical mistakes, we can see that we make them at certain times or in meeting a certain kind of people, or on being confronted with certain similar conditions. So whenever we feel that moment approaching and the ground begins to be slippery, there we have to watch, and, being determined not to yield to that mistake again, we will, through the conscious application of that law of cause and effect, destroy the negative causes and stop the repetition of the negative effects. Instead, we have started a positive cause which will someday culminate in a positive effect. If we keep to that decision to overcome imperfections, the law will carry us through with harmonious results, and we will be able to correct by all our mistakes. They will never occur again because we are setting up new causes, harmonious causes, which will be then continually expressed in corresponding new effects. On our life paths we very often stumble, we may even fall. Yet we should never worry about our stumbling or our falling. We should always bear in mind that it does not matter so much that we have fallen over an obstacle. The important fact is that we are on the other side of the obstacle, that we have advanced in spite of it. This is the main point to be always remembered by us, and then the fall itself will not appear to be so hard. The law of cause and effect, in its present aspect of a transitory, material law, is not harmful to us if we know how to use it properly. If we only do the right thing, we can use it in such a way that it will always work with positive results. That law explains also what is called reincarnation. Why do some individuals come to this earth to suffer and others to enjoy? If for some reason they could not get all they deserved for their good or evil deeds in one incarnation, in one life on earth, then they must come back to this plane again in order to get it in another life. In other words, they come to this earth as children go to school. It is indeed the school of life, where all lessons must be learned and all mistakes corrected. Then only are we ready for some higher and greater work. This explanation is the only logical one which completely does away with that seeming injustice in the destiny of human beings. In any case, it certainly is more acceptable than the theory of eternal bliss and eternal punishment. This last law of cause and effect closes the cycle of the 7 laws. 2 more laws will be given, making 9, the law of love and the law of evolution. These laws, although direct emanations from, and comprehended in, the first of the laws of the Absolute, are given separately, at the end of this lesson on laws, in order to emphasize the fact that no matter how strong the negative, with its transitory laws, may appear to us, the positive, with its eternal laws, is nevertheless supreme. It is the beginning and the end of everything.